Hi, welcome to CLACCA ULC. My name is Rev Comrade Rowley, and hopefully the technology is working today because thanks to Charles Sturt University, we were granted a student equity grant in order for a replacement laptop top. So hopefully it's working today. There was a few hiccups. Today, but it seems to be all systems go. So, in um, home group Bible studies, we talk about the liberation, sexuality and gender liberation hermeneutics of the Bible, and where we've been going through from Genesis to Revelations, and um, we're currently up to Genesis 25. And I would also like to acknowledge that the land that we're meeting on today is of the Gadigal and the Wangal people of the Eora Nation, and I pay my respects to the elders, both past and present. Recognise sovereignty, treaty, and social justice has never been ceded. So today we're talking about Genesis 25, and behind this text, as we know, um, no, it was written sometime between behind the text. It was written sometime between 850 BCE and 550 BCE. We suspect that Moses is the author, and well, there are links to the origins and history of Israel. However, um, it shouldn't be taken literally in the sense that these particular passages were told for educational purposes, and were not told as a we're not told necessarily as a historical account what actually happened, but the Genesis narrative was told for educational purposes. And so this particular passage is very much fits in with transgender biblical understandings of the text, because it has to do with um, twin hostility versus biological anatomy. So, essentially, in these particular circumstances, a new name and the circumstances in which it came about describe both the individual, but also a whole people and a history of their struggling relationship with God. God. Um, God. So essentially, in this particular passage, we've got a twin narrative, and so the struggle for transgender rights often relates to the twin narrative. If that could be compared to Siamese twins, for example, in which um, uh, uh, the um, removal of the dead twin in order to give life to the, the living twin, so to speak, and um, the old self um, is not entirely left behind, in the sense that in the case of transgender people as we transition through life, um, life. It's in no way, shape, or form. It's not an abandonment of our history, but rather it's uh, rather what we're leaving behind um, is we're removing the dead naming and misgendering, and the transphobia that we experience. So that's what's being moved from the course of the struggle. Now, within the text, it can be divided up into three. So within the text, Genesis 25, 1 to 18, is in relation to the death of Abraham. And so that can be compared to the death of the biological, the death of the gender that was assigned at birth, birth, and in 19 to 28, the children of Isaac are embracing the new identity. In 29 to 30, 30 is addressing the question of selling the birthright. So in relation to transgender people, when we medically and legally, transgender people were born, we are people who are opposite to what was assigned at birth. And so for us, it's not a selling. It's in no way, shape, or form a selling of our birthright, but in fact, an embracing of our birthright. In this particular passage, in this particular passage, when it's making a reference to the selling of birthright, what it's talking about, what is talking about is when human rights are basically denied for a price. So, e.g., in this particular instance, what is being said here is that in this particular case, they took money in exchange for being denied the birthright. Right. So and so in the case of it's a little bit like it's a little bit like saying to a transgender person, or if you just accept if you just accept being dead named, and you just accept being misgendered, we'll leave you alone. But the reality is, for most transgender people, it can actually put us in a situation of being life-threatening, in trying to force us to live what was assigned at birth. And speaking from personal experience, being forced to live in the wrong gender and the wrong name, in no way, shape, or form, it did not help me fit in life at all. On the contrary, being forced to live in the wrong gender and wrong name, in fact, it didn't win me acceptance, and didn't win me inclusion in any way, shape, or form. But in fact, probably made my struggle in life all that much harder. In order to and made the challenge. It in fact can not only be dehumanizing, but it also can add additional hurdles and burdens. In front of the text, I think this is a message in support of gender affirmation. Information can be both life saving, saving, as well as able to help people overcome the obstacles in life, or transgender people overcome the obstacles in life. And so, in this particular case, as exactly what Abraham fought for was the equal right for the children of Isaac, and trans and gender diverse people at large to embrace our bill, for the equal right, to affirm, to not just affirm but embrace our gender, our transgender identity, um, without being forced to sell out who we are. Uh, 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 and I think this particular passage, well, they haven't necessarily been able to prove in the case of twin studies, um, like one twin can be born cisgender and one twin can be born transgender. So it's not dismissing it's not dismissing the reality of biological anatomy for cisgender folks, but I think it's a reaffirmation of the importance, regardless of whether you're transgender, regardless of whether you're cisgender, um, that's affirming one's real name and real gender and gender can actually bring about life, and that death of the dead name, and death of the wrong gender, is in no way, shape, or form um, is not a it's not a request of a removal of one's history, and it's not a denial of one's history, but it's just removing the dead naming and the misgendering in order to prevent further transphobia, phobia, and injustice from happening to that transgender person. And I think this particular passage reaffirms that transition is an ongoing process and is an important part of what it means to be a Christian, and also what it means to be a transgender person. That's all from us now. Thank you very much for joining us for Home Group Bible Studies. Please join us at 5 p.m. For Sunday church, and I look forward to seeing you. God bless, and I will see you soon.